Coming up around the nation, Grambling proves they still have the heart of a champion as they take down the reigning SWAC title holders. Meanwhile, Prairie View A&M goes on the road and remains a factor in the West Division. And slowly creeping up the charts are the Bowie State Bulldogs, now approaching the top 15 in Division II. The bus is cranked up. The fridge is packed. We're ready to roll. It's the HBCU Sports Nation, and we're pulling out now. Hey folks, thanks a lot for joining us. Glad to have you along for the ride as we cruise around the HBCU Sports Nation with the only stuff that's fit to talk about in the way that your peeps like us get down. Remember, follow us, smashentertainment.net. Oftentimes in sports, especially in football, you need the motivation of history. You know, there's a standard that's been set that you got to live up to. I think it would be safe to say that Grambling over the last couple of years has not played up to the standard. Well, they were more than up to the standard last weekend, as arguably the biggest shocker perhaps in FCS came as the G-Men took down Alabama A&M. And that's how we kick off this edition of the Highlight Zone. The Prairie View A&M offense put up big numbers last Thursday night, and the defense came up with several game-saving second-half stands to give the Panthers a massive win over the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff at Panther Stadium. Prairie View quarterback Jawan Pass had another good night as he threw for 145 yards. He was 17 of 28. Also chipped in with 70 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. This time Pass gets outside the pocket and races 59 yards for a touchdown. And the house call would give the Panthers the lead for good. Prairie View A&M's Lindemann Brooks got his chance to eat too in this one. He led the Panthers on the ground with a game-high 118 yards, 83 coming on a first quarter house call of his own. Arkansas Pine Bluff trying to keep it close. Josh Wilkes connects with Xavier Vaughn for an 82-yard touchdown. That cut the gap, but the point after was blocked. Pass comes back, finishing the longest drive of the game with a 4-yard touchdown run, capping the 9-play, 75-yard drive. Panthers with 468 yards of total offense, and Prairie View rolls to a 27-17 win. A shocker at Coach Rob's house, and the G-Men went straight James Brown for a big comeback. Grambling State fell behind as the Bulldogs came out rolling behind Akil Glass. D. Anderson catches the first of 2 8-yard touchdown passes from Glass. He'd have 3 on the night, and the lead would blow up to 14-0. The defending SWAC champs heading to the second quarter. So they chilling, right? Not really. Graham quarterback Noah Bowden, the freshman from the NYC, that would be New York City for those of you who are cool impaired, he leads them down the field and connects with Tony Forrest on a 14-yard strike. And the Tigers are tuning up the band down 14-7. After an Urban Garrett 39-yard field goal, the lead was clipped to 14-10. Then Biden again connects for a score. This time it's James Durrell from 15 yards out. Grambling goes on top and never looks back. But the game shifted on a big defensive play when Glass is sacked and stripped, and Cameron Richardson comes up with the ball. He rumbles, stumbles, bumbles, 21 yards for the score as the Tigers extend the advantage. Brothers and sisters, I see what this game is coming to. Biden picks up where he left off in the first half after the intermission with a 60-yard bomb to Kobe Ross, capping a 24-point run to basically put the game on ice. Now, Glass, he's a good one. He won't go down without a fight. Connecting with Adeu Hilaire, 66 yards for a touchdown pass, and that turns into another visit to the house, but it wasn't enough. Grambling gets the first dub in the conference over the defending SWAC champs, 37-28, in the biggest upset of the SWAC this year. Where the offenses were firing on all cylinders, they would need extra time to decide this one. So we pick it up in the fourth quarter. Hampton up 34-31, but Norfolk State isn't done yet. Justin Smith hooks up with Jawan Carter, and 70 yards later, he's breaking dishes in the house. 38-34 Spartans. Norfolk State, Josh Nardone, nailing the 20-yard field goal, and just like that, Spartans on top, 41-34. 12 seconds left to go in regulation. Jadakiss Bonds, the best name in HBCU football, hands down. The Hampton receiver takes the 17-yard pass from Jet Duffy, not a bad name in its own right, and Hampton ties the score, so we head to extra time. Hampton steps out on top. They get a 28-yard field goal from Axel Perez to take a 44-41 lead. Then, on the ensuing drive, it's Carter capping the victory for the Spartans from 1 yard out. Norfolk State knocks off Hampton 47-44, and that's why Dawson Odoms was brought in from Southern to win big rivalry games. The former Southern coach dominated the Bayou Classic, and Hampton finds out, well, you can leave the MEAC and you can take the L back to the Big South.
Black out the move. Ride, 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 come on. Black College, stand up. HBCU.
Thanks for coming back, y'all. Look, the SWAC has been the innovator in FCS sports, from classics to bowl games to now esports. And they're getting into varsity level gaming sooner rather than later. The esports geek from today who sits in his house playing Minecraft or Madden or even FIFA may be the guy that's protecting us from cyber bullies and criminals around the world in the not-too-distant future. Jason Cable is the czar of SWAC esports. I caught up with him earlier this year to talk about the direction that the platform of video gaming is taking in the world of HBCU sports.
Sports is very important. It's the next thing, right? And so our institutions are always trying to find new ways, one, to increase enrollment, two, to retain students. And so esports is an avenue to do both. And then on the academic side, you have opportunities to develop certification programs and degree programs. So if you were to bump esports up against athletics, traditional athletics, you have the same opportunities in the esports space that you do in the athletic space as it relates to career paths. And so if you can recruit students, giving them opportunity to game, and that gaming and experience leads directly to a career path, I think the impact of esports is multifaceted. Our thought process as we introduced it to our institution, esports to our institutions, was the 3 phases. So one would be the club phase. We wanted everyone to have a program, have a coach or a point person for that program. And then we wanted to move into the competitive space. There are some competitive spaces out there that run traditionally like a men's and women's basketball collegiate league. And then thirdly, when we mentioned earlier, was the academic component, developing curriculums and certificate programs that can train students in STEM or in other areas that could lead to careers within esports, right? You're going to have some students that just want to play, just be gamers, recreational gamers. And then you're going to have some students who may have came from that background where they competed prior to coming to college, for prizes. So they're going to want to get into the competitive space. And so each institution has the opportunity to adopt. They can start with phase one, is just have the club team on campus, or they can move into the competitive space and add academic programs. So institutions have the leeway to implement how they see fit. We are just providing the platform and guidance as they decide to move along through the process. I do think we can incorporate some of that gaming experience at our events. And so we're in talks about having a 2K tournament at our men's and women's basketball tournament. So you have the best of both worlds, right? At our football championship game, maybe earlier that day, having a Madden tournament, King of the SWAC Madden tournament, where we take gamers from around the SWAC, have a tournament, and then the top four, the top two come to the central location and play for the SWAC championship. So I think you can achieve both. You can still gain the interest of those who are really interested in gaming and incorporate that gaming experience within our established football and band experience. You do have the social justice aspect, which is increasing the awareness of HBCUs nationwide, and I would say worldwide. I think that's one part of it. I think that the ability to reach, the reach is broader when you start talking about gaming. I mean, it's worldwide as well. And so for a sponsor or a partner to attach themselves to a conference that's upward, right? We're trending upward. And then to add the esports component and have access to gamers and to our campuses, I think is very attractive.
Black Island Blue. Ride, come on. Black College, stand up. HBCU.
All right, let's get you caught up right now on what went down in Division II at HBCUs last week. And we start in the CIAA, where 20th ranked Bowie State delivered a complete game on both sides of the ball, knocking off Johnson C. Smith 44-7 on homecoming, their 15th straight conference win dating back to 2018. Quarterback Jerome Johnson was 13 of 22 passing for 227 yards and 4 touchdowns. Running back Khalil Wilkins also chipped in with 120 yards on 13 carries and a score. Chowan routed Winston-Salem State 73-7 at home to move to 5-0. Off to their best start since 1980. Hawks getting another MVP caliber performance from Bryce Witt. The quarterback passes for 423 yards on 36 completions. He accounted for 8 of their touchdowns, 5 in the air, 3 on the ground for the second straight week. Chowan gets their biggest test of the season. They face nationally ranked Bowie State. Shaw won their 3rd straight game with a 27-7 win over Virginia Union on the road. The Bears jump out to a 17-0 lead in the first half and didn't look back. Shaw now set to host division foe Fayetteville State next week in a game that could have postseason implications. Elizabeth City State remained undefeated in CIAA play with a 19-13 win over winless Livingstone at home. Kevin Caldwell threw a pair of touchdown passes in the first half, including a 39-yarder to Cameron Saunders to help the Vikings take a 19-2 lead into the half, and they never looked back. Virginia State got their first win of the season, rolling to a 33-9 victory over St. Augustine's. The Trojans ran off 17 unanswered points that included a 66-yard touchdown run by Torrey Wallace. Fayetteville State easily handled Lincoln 46-9. The Broncos offense producing 450 yards of total offense, including 281 passing from Kari Lane, who also threw for 3 touchdowns. The FSU defense held the Lions to just 92 yards of total O. In the SIAC, Fort Valley State took a late second quarter lead and never gave it up over the last 18-plus minutes on the way to a 24-14 win at Benedict. Fort Valley outgained the SIAC's top offense 341 to 233 on the day. The Wildcats also posting a balanced ground attack by Terrell Jackson. The quarterback had 192 yards passing and rushed for 149. Savannah State struggled down the stretch against Kentucky State, but held on for a 21-17 victory. Tigers moving to 4-1, 3-0 in SIAC play with the win in Frankfort. Both Kentucky State and Savannah State put the triple option to work on the ground. Thoroughbreds rushing for 323 yards, Savannah State for 224. Kentucky State rolled up a grand total of 392 yards. And it was Allen knocking off Central State as freshman quarterback David Wright records season highs in completions with 38, attempts with 57, 455 yards, and 4 touchdowns for Allen to pull off the upset. Wright connected with 6 different receivers and rushed for 65 yards with a touchdown. That's your look at HBCU Division II scoreboard.
Black Island move. Ride, come on. Black College, stand up. HBCU.
Wow. It's great to be in October where all games matter. Anyway, upon further review, it appears that the life expectancy of an athletic director at Alcorn State really doesn't matter. Now, there are layers to this story. You remember the one where Alcorn was on the verge of missing out on a FBS payday because they didn't have an athletic director. You know the story where the athletic director then ultimately was the fall guy and demise in this circumstance because it was embarrassing. They were called out from everybody in national media through their own rival coach, Prime himself, Deion Sanders, at Jackson State. Well, Derek Horn took the fall last week. He resigned as athletic director and was rather docile and conciliatory in terms of taking the hit. But one thing we have not done to this point is actually hear anything from the president's office, which brings to mind the question, is the Horn hire a product of a mistake by M. Christopher Brown II or by Dr. Felicia Nave? It would be helpful, since everybody is going to blame the vicious media who's always looking to condemn and castigate HBCUs whenever they do something wrong, but you're not open and honest to face the music. I mean, what kind of precedent are you setting for your students when they see this kind of absence of leadership? We understand that the athletic director is the person that oversees what goes on the day-to-day operations in the athletic department. But as most people have said, this is a resources issue. Who appropriates the resources? The president. Basically, president has loot. President gives loot to AD. AD uses loot to fund athletic department. Athletic department uses loot to fund athletic training position. That's where we are with this thing. but there's still no transparency. So what's happened here? You put a Band-Aid on a festering wound that's going to lead to another embarrassing circumstances in the not too distant future. The time has come for transparency, not only at Alcorn State, but at all HBCUs. It's not the press hating on you. It's the press doing our job. And our job is to cover the news. And when you don't have adequate athletic training to protect your athletes, and it may cost you some money, it's pretty big news. And until we get to the bottom of mistaken hire, it's gonna be news. So somebody from the president's office might as well come off and be transparent. Anyway, and we got room for you on the Sports Nation. We would love to hear from you, Alcorn, because we love the Braves. Nothing like tailgating on the reservation. I love Jack Spinks Stadium. Hey, I've been known to even succumb to the Spinks jinx. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Black College 3-2-1. Thanks a lot for joining us. That's going to do that 3-2-1. Thanks for hanging out with us, y'all. Great to have you along for the ride for this edition of the HBCU Sports Nation. Remember, the refrigerator's packed. We're always gassed up and ready to roll. And like Motel 6, we'll leave the light on for you. Till next time, it's your boy Mark Gray. I look forward to seeing you around the HBCU Sports Nation.